And for whatever reason, you have a closed mind. I don't know why. Perhaps you could tell me.
You are now listening to the Latino Free Mind podcast. Enjoy the show.
Yo, what's up, everybody? Welcome back to Latino Free Minds, episode 124. I'm your host, Daniel, with co-host Danny. How you doing, man? It's been weeks.
I know we forget what our names are. Danny, Daniel,
Hey, it was close.
Tom.
How you been?
I've been good. Just blessed with everything in life. But yeah, there's been, I'm not gonna lie to you. What happened in what was it, Minneapolis is that was pretty heavy stuff. Um,
Hmm.
Kind of been thinking about that a lot, and it's been weighing on me, but not like necessarily like in a negative way, but just the it kind of just makes me think about what we're doing as parents. Are we paying enough attention to our kids? And I'm referring to, the shooter.
Hmm.
Turns out that he had mental issues and stuff like that. And, where are those parents at? What was influencing him? Um, but I know we're going to talk about different things today, but,
No, yeah.
that's kind of been weighing on, on my head pretty bad. So
Yeah, no, I think too it's, when something like that happens and like you said, that person had mental issues and to target kids, that's that's a whole nother level of I think crazy that you got to be. And I think part of the problem with that is these kids do have issues, and I believe the way that they're being treated is, that's what they call it, right? Affirming care. They just make them feel like, okay, yeah, you're fine, you're just somebody else, you're stuck in the wrong body, and they don't really address that person's real issues. They just mask it with something else, and the person still ends up being mentally, something's wrong with them, and then they go do stuff like that. So it is I think something that needs to be addressed. It's always been mental health issues when stuff like that happens, but people are quick, politicians and whatnot, to just say it's a gun issue. But I think what's obvious in everything that we've seen is it's a mental issue.
yeah, the other thing that I've been thinking a lot about is it's not a left or right issue either.
Mm-mm.
Um, we need to dive deeper and forget about all that back and forth and disagreements, and let's just take it down to the root cause. If we just focus on that, forget the left, right, forget um, conservative or liberal ideologies and stuff like that. That I think that's what's been weighing on me a little bit more.
Hmm.
We just get stuck on going back and forth about politicizing it, or um, you know, just using it for whatever agenda that serves them.
Yeah.
Um, so yeah, that's the part that I've been thinking about a lot since that happened.
And with that said too, it's also like stuff they choose to not cover extensively. You know what I mean? Like, for example, this shooter was identifying as something else. I believe like those types just kind of they go away quicker. You know what I mean? So, but it's all like you said. It's all a political type of you know process and manipulation, and they don't want to be factual. They want to make it political, and we end up in the same spot and nothing gets resolved because nobody wants to address like the root cause. So I think that's a huge part of the problem.
Yeah, I agree. I agree. But after that downer, well, how are you doing? How you been?
No, I've been good. Just I think both of us busy at work, work work stuff happens, and yeah, we were off the past couple weeks, but we're here, we're chugging along, and everything's been good. It's been hot. It picked up the end of last week, but it kind of dropped back down this week. So we'll see what happens. I was driving to near Sacramento yesterday, and then it was just pouring like from like Atwater to like Turlock, like hard, and I was like, and just lightning everywhere. So it's been an interesting weather.
Yeah, on the way to work, I've been going to Patterson quite often the past month and a half. And
Hmm.
in the morning, you get the like best sunrises, like the way that the sun is coming up, and then the clouds and the rays are shooting through the clouds and stuff like that.
Hmm.
It's really nice, and I'll stop and I'll snap some pictures from the side of the car. So those storms that you're talking about in the morning, I got to see them in the morning. So on my right side, it was all nice and clear, and on my left side, like going east, like where you were talking about,
Yeah.
was just super cloudy, and then the lightning was just coming in like horizontal. It wasn't like up and down; it was just like horizontal.
Hmm.
It was pretty crazy looking,
I,
but
I
yeah.
saw it, like, yeah, the ones that were going just like boom, across,
Hmm.
but I saw like a good like five or six lightning bolts, whatever, that like they
Straight
look
down.
thick and they were just like straight down. It's like they're hitting the ground for sure. It looks like but it was like kind of far over there, but
Yeah.
it was like, oh man, I hope no people are around where that looks like it's landing somewhere. So yeah, I mean but overall been good, just working and hanging out with the family. So can't complain. But yeah, I mean, yeah, we'll talk about some stuff. We're gonna dive into um voter roll cleanups, something that Danny has said since day one of Latino Free Minds is we are the majority. So we're gonna kind of dive into a little bit of that. We'll talk about Prop 50 and why we believe it should be a no vote. We'll kind of go. We've been, if you follow us on Instagram, which we're finally able to go live on now, you've been seeing the clips and you know what we feel about it, and we've kind of explained it as best as we could, the process. So we'll kind of break that down, and then I wanted to talk about Trump and the National Guard stuff he's doing, like having him in DC and stuff like that. So just kind of a few California things, and then just touch on that because it is related to California, and we'll kind of connect the stories there. But yeah, Danny, I want to say, you know, from the beginning, you've said we're the majority, and you know, I saw a there's a guy named Shiloh Marks, and he's been doing a lot of work in as far as like voter rolls. So kind of putting out data of California and how it's cleaned up voter rolls, right? So, um, for example, so in 2022, here's one of his tweets. In 2022, there were 4.9 million inactive voters. So this election was when Newsom uh, ran against Brian Dolly. There was 4.9 million inactive voters. So obviously, we've talked about California not having any real voter integrity, and we don't need IDs to vote. And they'll say, people like Newsom will say, there is no fraud. But we combat that with saying, well, if you don't check for it, of course you're not going to find any. So 4.9 in 2022, and now in 2025 there's 2.3. So what is that? It's down 2.6 million inactive voters. So that number is going down, and it's county by county. They're a lot of the information that this guy's been putting out will show, like, and hopefully one day we could get him on here so he can explain it better. But like it'll show, like, okay, this county had this many total voters and this many inactive voters, and Newsom won this county by almost the same number as inactive voters in that county. And it's like, okay, that's interesting. um but
That's where I would like to know the census for that county. That'd be pretty interesting.
yeah, but it's kind of, in a sense, right, making your point and proving what what you've said from day one.
Um, I think it's just paying attention to it. I've had this conversation with many people, and everybody would look at me and like I was crazy. But the reason that I came to that conclusion, or that was my thought, is because the people that I would talk to, um, you know, media and everybody would make it seem that the majority of the people think a certain way, but when you actually start talking to people, you start realizing that it isn't that way. So
Hmm.
that was number one. Number two, just hearing different stories about you know dead people being deceased, people being on the voter rolls and things like that. That's hit like national news lately in the past few months or something like that, if not a little bit longer. But those are things that no one really talked about, and it wasn't really, well, to this day it's not talked about in mainstream media.
Hmm.
So I started listening to independent news organizations, or people, if you will. And I started hearing that, and I started connecting the dots, and then just started seeing the patterns, and the patterns is exactly what you're showing right there on the screen, is that the majority of the people lean conservative. And it's the bigger cities where they tend to vote a little bit more liberal, a lot more liberal.
Yeah.
But what's crazy, and stop me if we're going to talk about this a little bit later, but it's a perfect segue into gerrymandering.
Hmm.
And I've got a little story about gerrymandering for everybody. My son's 23 right now, but when he was a sophomore in high school, I picked him up from high school, and I would always ask him, how was school and stuff like that, and um, we would have a conversation about what he learned. And I remember he started talking about redistricting. So he went to a charter school, so it wasn't a public school, so they got a little bit, better education. They had a little,
Hmm.
the curriculum was a little bit better than the public, education in high school. So we started talking about that, and it's common knowledge, man. It's like redistricting it's used. He told me that they would talk about the strategies. So you've got that map up on there.
Hmm.
So what people need to understand is that whoever's in charge of drawing these maps, redistricting, it's done with a purpose, so that the liberals, the Democrats, have more representation. I mean, they're in charge of it. We've been as they've been a super majority for decades.
Hmm.
So this makes sense,
Yeah.
that that's why they're the super majority, and people need to understand that.
Yeah, no, and if you ask me, the that picture there of the map of California, um, I think that's a huge reason why the Democrats want to redistrict. I don't think it has nothing to do with Texas. I think Texas just kind of gave them the quote unquote opportunity,
It's
but
the reason.
you
It's
know,
the excuse.
yeah, the excuse. But this map right here, and we said it, like I said in some of the videos that we posted, last month, is I think this is what they're scared of. It's not because Texas is doing this. It's they see what's that saying, the writing on the wall. And this is an example of kind of what I was saying. San Diego County removed 110,000 ineligible voters. Uh, so in San Diego County in 2022, Newsom won by just about that amount.
Hmm.
So it's just maybe it's coincidence. Maybe
No,
we're
I'm going to tell you the same thing that I've been trying to say since we started, doing the podcast, is that there has to come a point where we stop saying but, or let's just say it the way
Mhm.
that it is. You've heard me say this before, is that there's shenanigans going.
Oh
It's
yeah.
that you said it earlier. You said, if they don't look for the crime, or they don't look for the loopholes,
Hmm.
they're not going to find voter fraud, right?
Right.
But look at the way that everything is structured. So you're going to tell me that we're going to enforce fair elections when there's no voter ID? Right there, with that statement right there,
Hmm.
you're opening up the door for fraud, period.
Hmm.
So there, I don't care what anybody says, or what their counter argument is that with that fact alone, it opens the door for fraud, and there's going to be fraud, and there is fraud. And we have to
Hmm.
get to a point where, as I don't know, conservatives, um, or just honest people,
Hmm.
we have to stand up and say, there's fraud going on.
Hmm.
And you'll have the argument, and it's like, are you going to tell me that this person didn't win the election or didn't lose the election? Look, by the rules that we're playing right now, yes, you are right. That person won the election, or this person lost the election
Hmm.
by the rules that we're playing. Now, what I'm trying to say is, if we change the rules so that everything is fair, yes, things will be different.
Hmm.
So let's not be afraid of enforcing, honest elections, and let's do
Hmm.
what Trump is. Isn't he signing or signed an executive order, or is about
Yeah, I,
to, or
I
against
saw that
Trump?
he was going to. I'm not sure if he did already, but even that, right? They'll have like their legal battles, right, to enforce
Always.
that. But we said also when Trump won the election in 2024, that Congress, you know, the the Congress and the Senate are the ones that are going to have to push this stuff through, because executive orders are, they're cool and all, but it can go away, with the next guy.
Hmm.
So,
Hmm.
we need them to step up and actually make it the law of the land, where, you know, you have to show some sort of identification when you vote, And we're set up so that every state kind of handles their own election, right? But I think there should be something, I don't know if it needs to be an amendment added to the Constitution, where it's like law of the land, where it's like, okay, you got to stay within this, you know what I mean? But having proof of citizenship to vote in elections in America, being an American citizen to vote for your American representatives, I think that should be, it shouldn't even be partisan. It should be like, okay, yeah, that makes a whole lot of sense.
Yeah.
So, you know, that's where I kind of like, I like to see that Trump is doing that, but I want to see it like become something official that's not going to go away when the next Democrat wins.
Okay, so you know what you just said right now about Trump doing that with an executive order and all that stuff. I agree with you. It shouldn't have to get to that point where he has to do that. It's It's what we have allowed the politicians to do. So why don't we look up, does the Constitution state that you have to be a citizen in order to vote, right?
Okay, yeah, yeah. I'll look that up right now. Um, you know, I hope it does. I mean, if it does,
Sure, it
then
does,
what are
but
we doing? What are we doing?
yeah.
But like, you know what I'm saying? Like that shouldn't even be like a partisan issue.
Yeah, all persons born or naturalized in the United States. Okay, so with that just being said right there,
Hmm.
let's enforce it. The only way that you're going to be able to enforce it um, is by having voter ID. All right.
Hmm.
So who I'm going to ask you an honest question right here. Um, who's at fault for this? For us not requiring a voter ID?
Well, it's mostly, I would say, the people for the people that have been put in place. It's like a mix. It's like the people and politicians.
So I'm just going to be honest with you, and this is kind of like where I'm at, and this is what I started the podcast with.
Hmm.
Let's just be honest, man. It's on us.
Hmm.
We're not doing what we're supposed to be doing. We're not holding people accountable. We we let people gaslight us, lie to us, to our face, tell us that they're going to do one thing and do the exact opposite of what they tell us.
Hmm.
We're weak. We're cowards, man.
Hmm. Yeah.
We've let this happen.
Yeah.
So I'm kind of at that point where it's like we blame the politicians. Forget that. Let's just say it the way that it is. We let this happen,
Hmm.
and we gotta fix it. And this is not. I'm not trying to be like a tough guy like Gavin Newsom right now or anything like that. It's not violence. It's not anything like that. It's like let's just for reals
Hmm.
hold people accountable.
Yeah. Yeah, and then yeah, that's on us, right? Because if, to your point, right, if we elect people and they don't do what they're supposed to do, or they do things that are outside of our, our rights, our constitutional rights, then yeah, like we should be getting rid of them. And people as a whole constantly fall for that manipulation. They get tricked into believing, whatever the narrative is, and we end up here because we're trying to be, I don't even know what it is, right? We're trying to be nice to everybody. I don't know what it is, but something like this, like requiring an ID to vote, that should be a no-brainer. you
Yeah.
know I looked it
No.
up, and it said that the Constitution doesn't explicitly state that only citizens can vote in a federal election, but it provides a framework that has led to citizenship being a requirement. So in a sense, it doesn't really like say you have to be a citizen, but if you kind of read, what it says, it's like, okay, the assumption or the conclusion is you have to be a citizen. So
Mhm.
that's what I'm saying. It's like if they
So
just want to throw it in there, just I don't see why
okay,
not.
I a long time ago I heard this example, an explanation
Mhm.
of why only citizens are to vote. Okay, so there's strategy behind it. So let's say, for example, China. They're our enemy, right?
Mhm.
So it's very simple. If that was the case, they would send you know 10 million of their people over here to migrate over here, and then they would just vote a specific way, and boom, they take over,
Mhm.
and they end up conquering the US, just as
Mhm.
an example. So there's protections, there's reasons why um, those are put in place. We have to enforce them. That's it.
That's it. Yeah. That's it.
And I'm kind. I'm. I don't know. I feel like I'm being a therapist right now, but it's kind of like, the stages of fixing a problem. You have to acknowledge the problem. Okay,
Hmm.
so acknowledging the problem. I'm here right now, telling everybody my opinion.
Hmm.
We're the problem. We let this happen. Stop
Yeah.
blaming politicians and everything like that. Let's do something about it. That's just me.
Yeah.
Um, and then after that, define the problem clearly.
Hmm.
Okay. So if we start doing that, I think we can actually start fixing things. And what
Hmm.
I mean by that is, if I'm the problem and I acknowledge that I've been distracted and I've been manipulated for a long period of time, and I start paying attention to what's happening to in my surroundings, in my community, in my county, my state, my country, um, maybe I won't let things happen that shouldn't be happening.
Hmm.
Maybe when I'm voting, I can call BS and say, no, that's not factual. That's not true. You're a liar. And if they turn out to be liars, then we impeach them or recall them or whatever the case may be. And some people might be saying we've already tried to do that. Yeah, but we've tried to do that with rules that are written so that we can lose.
Mm.
So, if we're going to identify this, let's go root cause and
Hmm.
let's be real.
Hmm. Yeah. No, and you know, this again to go back to the point too, it's this is why they're doing all of this, because once we get all of this squared out, which it looks like it's starting to kind of correct, right? More people, especially Latinos, voted, Republican,
Yep.
conservative, and they it's a huge voting block. And it's more than just pandering to us. We're tired of high taxes. We're tired of inflation and just failed policies that this state has.
Tired of being
So
lied to, too.
yeah, yeah, and tired of all that. So you know it's I think, like we said at the beginning, and how Danny has said since episode 1, is we are the majority. And I think people listening to this can comment what they feel or whatnot, but I we feel that California is red, but we're known as a blue state. So it's just all these shenanigans that are gonna get squared out. And which moves us to the next segment, which is tied to it, is you know this election, this special election that's coming up November 4th of this year. So we we were doing Break the Blue Wave 2026, right? It's
Hmm.
like, well, we had to shift it a year earlier than
I
we
know.
thought we were, right? So um you know having props 50 to go vote for that on November 4th, which is something that, from right now, from what we're seeing from representatives that are in Congress, like we had David Tongipa on. you know he's the information he's giving out is, the verbiage, the way it's now, it's a no vote on Prop 50. Now, we've said this since day one too, is Democrats love to play with words, and we really got to see what will be on the ballot when we go vote. So whenever they send that sample ballot, which I'm hoping is soon, because you know what, we got less than 2 months and people got to kind of decide what they want to do. We got to see what it says. And in a sense, I think you kind of mentioned it earlier, is a yes really a yes and a no really a no? Because they'll do things like that where it's like, okay, well, I'm gonna vote no. Oh, that actually meant yes.
Hmm.
So it's about maintaining that power, because they saw that map. They want to blame it on Texas, but they saw that map, that Californians are tired of their crap. And they're trying to find a way to get these red counties out here and just kind of, stretch them out a little bit so it touches a little bit enough of that blue county where that population just completely takes over that whole other voting block that's been there. So, what are your thoughts on everything with Prop 50? I know we've done some clips, but kind of for the people that
Man,
haven't seen it.
you know, day one, we talked about learning. We've learned so much, and I'm so glad that we started doing this. Um, Me personally, just for myself, and learning so many different things that I would still be freaking worried about my fantasy football picks right now and doing some other stupid shit. Excuse my language.
You listening, Christian?
Um, and actually looking into this and engaging with people and having dialogue and going, actually, I don't know enough about that, let me go look that up. um, I can't say it enough. I'm just really glad that we did this, and
Mm-hmm.
we have so much more to learn. But to answer your question, um, doing a deep dive and learning about this, gerrymandering, redistricting, and what's going on, I would like to say this is that when people start talking about what another state is doing and what our state is doing,
Mm-hmm.
take the time and do the research. To my knowledge, Texas is following their legislative process to redistrict. Their representation, the liberals, Democrats, are trying to avoid their responsibilities and they're fleeing the state so that they won't be part of that legislative process. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So that's Texas. So they're doing they're following their process. Now let's talk about California, because everybody tries to conflate both of them. And, that's the excuse that Newsom is using to redistrict in our state. Okay. So in our state, we have a process that was voted on. And that process is we have a commission made up of citizens to redistrict.
Mm-hmm.
And that's usually done, every decade. And Newsom, and let's be clear about this, is trying to circumvent that system that's already in place, that commission made up of citizens that was voted on, so that he could circumvent them, so that he can redraw the maps the way that they would like to, so that they gain seats. So, yes,
Mm-hmm.
great politicking on his behalf, because he's using the timing that Texas is redistricting so that he could do it here. The people that are falling for that, wake up and do your research. Don't fall for it.
Mm-hmm.
He's circumventing the system and labeling it as handing the power back to the people. He's taking the power away from you,
Mm-hmm.
not handing it back. So, do we know who's going to redraw the maps? To my knowledge, I've done some research, and it's going to be politicians and their advisors.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Well, basically the people we voted against having that power.
yeah. So, um, I'm absolutely against. Um,
Prop
Like
50.
you said, we're waiting to see what that wording is going to be on the ballot. But as it stands right now, it's a no vote.
Mm-hmm.
We can't let this happen.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
We're
And
going to give them even more power if this happens, and we're going to have less representation if this
mm-hmm.
happens.
I mean, and that's my thing. It's like, how much more representation do the Democrats want in California? Like,
All of it. They're not happy if they don't have all of it.
man, you got to be like, it's crazy, and it's true. The point you made. It's people are caught up in, oh well, Texas is doing it. We had to fight fire with fire. That bullshit that Newsom's been saying, but it has nothing to do with that. The point we're making is and basically kind of repeating what you said. Honestly, we voted for an independent, nonpartisan commission because we aren't a democracy, we're a republic. So we need fair representation. And what the Democrats are doing is damaging the republic by not giving, let's just say if it was 40% on the last election, 40% of the population any real representation. Like, how is that fair? How is that democracy? You know what I mean? Like, democracy in the terms that they use it as, right? But democracy and what it really is a popularity contest. That's why, if we go back to that map, the coast is blue, so the state is blue because that's where the population is. So if you have the population voting for, the most popular guy, then yeah, that's a democracy. But we're supposed to be a republic. We're supposed to have equal representation, fair representation, and this kind of stuff, this gerrymandering and redistricting, goes completely against the purpose of our government.
Hmm. And one thing that I'm going to add is if we don't have the shenanigans that that we've been having for decades, and fair voting is enforced, it
Hmm.
doesn't matter if they're on the coast. I'll tell you that right now.
Hmm. Oh yeah,
It would be all red.
yeah. No, and I believe that too, and that's why it's like it's good to see that they are, cleaning up the voter rolls.
Hmm.
Um, I would encourage people to, double check, make sure you're still registered to vote. Um, obviously you can only do that if you're alive. So go ahead and do that. Um, and as we've always said, when it comes time to vote, show up and vote. You know, don't don't sit back. Don't think, oh, because I've seen this in comments too. It's like, well, our vote doesn't count, or the people don't choose out here anyways. And it's like,
You've
that
already
you've yeah,
they
they
got
want
you.
you to feel that way.
They got you. Once of those words come out of your mouth, they won, and they got you thinking
Mhm.
exactly what they want you to think.
They want you to think that we don't have enough people to overturn all these elections, but we do. This is again to the key point of this episode. I think is that's why they're redistricting, because they saw it happen in 2024. Newsom's on his way out in 2026, and I think he's trying to do his best to give them. It's like his parting gift. Like I'm gonna give you guys,
Mm.
at least 4 years with this crazy amount of control over all these districts, because then this is okay. Here's the thing. It's like it's gonna be, or it should be, and you can't ever trust a Democrat. So it should be temporary, right? It should be where if they go through with this, the independent commission in 2030 should do its job and reinstate nonpartisan maps, right? That's that's if you trust the Democrats won't, as we always say, take an inch and then want to take a mile, you know? So in 20 in theoretically, if it works that way, in 2030, we get this kind of back to normal. Well, guess what? Democrats wasted up to $300 million of our tax money just to make sure they gained power when they saw that they were going to lose it. That's how I look at it.
Yeah. And speaking about comments, great shout out. Shout out to that one comment where um, this person mentioned, don't forget about how much money the special election is going to cost,
Hmm.
and did a little bit of research on that, and it's 200 to 250 million dollars. That's it. That's the price tag on this special election.
Hmm.
So if you're supporting this just because you're going to be what do they say? Vote blue no matter who, or
A
something.
lot of those, yeah.
Um, you're also encouraging throwing 200 and 250 million dollars down the tube
Hmm.
that could go somewhere, else where it's needed. I mean, we're already getting ripped off in so many different areas that here's another way.
Hmm.
They found another way, man.
Hmm. And here's the thing too that kind of goes into all this is it's not just about Texas, it's about California. And like we said, it's a failing state. People are leaving this state. So if people leave this state, you're going to lose representation because you don't have the population for it. So that is a California problem. That is our leadership problem with driving people out with high homelessness, high energy costs. Um, People are going to leave because the super majority has no checks. There's no checks and balance. You end up when there's no checks and balance in the government like there's supposed to be. You end up with what we have now here, and and instead of them trying to actually fix and solve issues, they just want to redraw maps so that they don't have to do that and they stay in power for at least another 4 to 5 years. That's crazy. That's not representation. That's
That's
straight up
losers
bullshit.
trying to maintain power. Look, I use the example of capitalism because you can apply it to anything. So
Hmm.
where I work, if we don't put out a good product, consumers are not going to come to us. We're going to lose business. They're going to go somewhere else.
Hmm.
California hasn't been putting our politicians, our government, um, have not been putting out a good product. So people are leaving. They're going somewhere else. We can take a look and see where they're leaving to and check out what product they're producing over there, or what the option is over there. But let's take a deep dive and see why people are leaving California. The product sucks,
Yeah, absolutely.
plain and simple. With that argument, it, what can you tell me?
Nothing, dude.
What,
It's a
what
fact.
they're leaving? The product sucks here.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
it.
Yeah.
So now, with that being said, going to the first point that I made, we allowed it to happen. So we need to focus on
Yeah.
how we can come back and fix this thing, because the politicians are not going to fix it. If you're depending on a politician to fix it,
Mm-mm.
we're in big trouble. And that goes back to what you said. Trump with the executive orders and stuff like that. That's all good and dandy, but we can't depend on one person to save us and fix the problem for us. That's on us.
Mhm.
We gotta take accountability and go, hey Trump, we appreciate that, but we're gonna handle this, or
Yeah.
we'll take this boost that you're gonna give us, but we gotta hold it down. We gotta do our part and hold our representatives
Mhm.
accountable.
Yeah. No, 100%. And then just to kind of to get into our last segment, since we're speaking of failures, uh, I want to talk about crime, right? And you know, Newsom, what he says versus reality. So Trump deployed the National Guard into D.C. and crime went down. They had over 11 straight days, I think, without a murder, which is the longest in years, which is crazy to say. 11 days, that's like nothing, but it's such a I guess it's such a success, right? So violent crime dropped, carjackings went down. And here's the main problem is that in DC, and I believe, and not that I believe, it's like I basically know it's happening here, is they're underreporting crimes.
Oh, 100%.
So when Trump does all this and he says, okay, I'm gonna send the National Guard to DC, I'm gonna send the National Guard to Chicago, which every weekend, I don't know, maybe 60 to 100 people get shot in Chicago. Like if he does that, right, and crimes go unreported, it's kind of like similar to what we were saying about fraud and election fraud. It's like if you don't look for it, it's not gonna be
Well,
there.
it's the
If you
rules,
don't,
right? If the
yeah,
rules are set up that way, you're not going to report it. Okay, if an AG doesn't prosecute, what crime is there to report? What
ex-
prosecutions are there to report? It shows that crime is down.
Yeah, but if you're in any of those cities, if you were in DC, and there's a lot of videos of people like probably like the week after talking about like, oh man, this is the safest I've ever felt walking down the street. You know what I mean? I'm not worried. Um, if he does send the guard to Chicago, I'm sure there's going to be a lot of people that are going to feel the same way. I think he even mentioned Los Angeles, right? So if you live in LA, you live in California, there is a bunch of crime. And Newsom will say like, oh, homicides are down 20%, violent crimes are down 6%, uh, property crimes down 8%. So he boasts all these numbers, well, because nothing is going reported. And as California residents living in reality, we know that's not true. And I wanted to play this video because this is from Los Angeles and it's relevant to the point we're trying to make. So because maybe you hear us and you go, dude, there's no way they're not reporting crime. Just watch this video and then just kind of you can see how we know because we live here.
I'm a big badass motherfucker. Do something. Hey, stop fucking.
So for a battery, it's going to be a private person's arrest, okay? So we're not going to be arresting him. The way that it works is because it's a misdemeanor not committed in my presence. You're going to be signing that private person's arrest, and you're going to be the one going to court and testifying against him. To arrest him. So if you're not willing to go to court, there's really no...
For property damage and battery?
So battery is a misdemeanor. The property, if it's under $400, it's still a misdemeanor.
Is that LA County or is that all California?
It's all California.
That's the same.
Guys, the police are impotent in California. Let's just move. They can't do anything.
Very ambiguous.
It's Los Angeles police. They can't do anything about anything. Listen, actually, I had to walk up and stand between that guy and violently assaulting them because police can't do anything. You guys are impotent to actually do justice because the state of your culture is such that people run and do evil every minute of every day.
That's fine, but I'm trying to do my job, okay? And I'm explaining to you.
Yeah, you can't do your job. You've been given a sword to do justice, to protect innocent people, but you can't do it because of the state of the culture.
Yeah. So in order for that guy to go and get arrested, you have to go to court and to basically demand he gets arrested when the cop's right there. You know what I mean? There's video footage of what they're accusing him of and nothing. So that crime happened on camera. It's a crime, whether you think it's serious or not. It's still a crime. And what happens? We can't do nothing about it. So that's a crime that never happened in the books. So you can believe Newsom all you want when he says crime is down. And it's like, well, yeah, if crime goes unreported, crime is down. It's going to be down. But we know reality because we were seeing smash and grabs. You see gang violence, unsafe streets. That's why we all voted for Prop 36 because we saw reality. I think it was 70% of the state voted in favor of harsher penalties for crimes because as much as Gavin Newsom and all these Democrats want to say their cities are safe, we all know it's not true.
Yeah, that's pretty sad. That's pretty sad. And, I do want to say one thing. Trump deploying the National Guard to different states, different cities, and stuff like that. We should be embarrassed that has to happen. Going back to, taking accountability as a citizen and letting these politicians do this to us. I remember when. Do you remember when Chicago had all those teenagers that were kind of just
Just going crazy,
hitting
going wild,
people and doing smashing grabs and stuff like that? And the mayor came out and said that we shouldn't
Blame them. Like
condemn them
it's.
and blame them and all of that stuff.
Mhm.
I actually I actually agree with the mayor, is because these what that guy on that video did and what the young people did in Chicago, um, they're allowed to do it.
Mhm.
So let's go back to identifying the real problem. You know, that mayor is right in Chicago. We shouldn't condemn those kids. We should condemn the politicians that allow that to happen. We should condemn ourselves for allowing the politicians to allow that. How in the world in society could we allow that to happen? Can we? And if you're not ready to take responsibility for that, it's okay. Um, I just might be looking at things from a different perspective, and I accept that.
Mhm.
But I'm taking accountability for it. I was asleep for the longest time,
Mhm.
and I had to wake up.
Yeah. No.
Some
I.
people are still asleep, and God knows when they're gonna wake up. I
Mhm.
just hope that they really do.
No, and we see it in the interaction we get.
Yeah, and I'm gonna say this. People always talk about you know defending Trump no matter what he does or what he
Mhm.
whatever comes out of his mouth. And I'm telling you, I do not like the president that's being set right now with deploying National Guard to the cities. It just doesn't feel good. It doesn't feel right. I don't like it. Um, I will acknowledge that it needed to be done at some
Mhm.
point.
Mhm.
Washington, D.C. being an example. You read the stats. Um, it's helped. I just don't like the fact that it had to come to this, and
Mhm.
I don't like where this is leading to. I just hope that people see it, and I hope it's a step for people to wake up. I
Mhm.
really hope that that's what that is doing.
Yeah,
I,
and no, I get what you're saying. You definitely don't want to see that, but with all this happening, um, I think instead of the Democrats going, you know what, he kind of proved the point by cleaning up DC, and like maybe we should get our cities together. They went in. I don't know. They took it to court, so a judge could say, no, Trump can't do that. You know what I mean? And
Mhm.
it's like, well, that's not the point. The point is that you guys are letting your cities go crazy, and there's no accountability to the general public when they commit crimes. And then you've made it about Trump. Maybe like I'm gonna assume I haven't read it all, but like I'm gonna assume that they're making it about Trump being a dictator, right?
Mhm.
Sending the army into, or the guard into the
Yeah,
into cities.
there's sending troops to protect people.
Yeah. And you know what? I mean, I totally get what you're saying, but then at the end of the day, with the cities being the way that they are, and it sucks that it got to that point, you know. I think you said it too. It's like, well, eventually something's got to give, right? Um and as much as I don't like it, I don't see anything. I don't see it wrong in a sense, because it's happening for a right cause, right? You have the commander in chief using the National Guard to send to cities that don't enforce any laws, don't have any, you know what I mean, are going crazy.
Yeah,
So
it's like
he's
the
guarding the
example you
nation.
gave right there with that video. That's combating.
Yeah, he's guarding the nation using the National Guard. I mean, if nobody else is going to do it, you know, who else, right? If you're going to be mad at Trump for doing that, well, call out your governor, right? Hey, like Newsom, stop being full of shit. We all know, we all see. That's why Prop 36 is the main proof that whatever you say about crime being low, you're full of shit, because we see it. And that's what everyone else needs to do. So I just think the way Trump is approaching it is that way works. The way Newsom spins it doesn't. Gets us to where we need something like that to happen.
Look, I heard a clip of Trump and him going into DC and having to do what he had to do, and possibly going into Chicago. Right? I heard
Mhm.
a clip earlier today. You know what he said, and what stood out to me is that I have a responsibility to protect the citizens of this country.
Mhm.
Right? Something to that effect.
Yeah,
Okay,
guarding the nation.
but this is where I'm going to put it back to our people, the
Mhm.
citizens. We all should be saying that. We all should be saying that. And if we would take that position that Trump is taking, we wouldn't be worrying about the fantasy football league. We would be worrying about how we're getting screwed with legislation and just what we've allowed to happen.
Mhm.
So yes, there's agreement there, but the acknowledgement needs to be made is that it's on us. And we have to use the same words that Trump used. It's our responsibility to protect the citizens, to
Mhm.
protect ourselves. Why
Mhm.
in the world would we have to depend on one man like that?
Yeah, no, we shouldn't. It should be all on us. So no, I think that's uh, a valid point. Um, so overall, to kind of recap the episode, it's where we're seeing what we've said all along, that you know we are the majority in California. They're cleaning up voter rolls, and you know hopefully that keeps going. Um, the whole gerrymandering thing, that's all BS to keep power. And November 4th, we have to show up and vote against it, vote no to stop this partisan rigging. And we touched on Trump and how he's handling crime, and kind of what you said, man. It's don't be mad at Trump that we allowed it.
Yeah, no, and I want to give a shout out to some of the representatives that I've been seeing out there. I've seen clips of them standing up and demanding answers and
Hmm.
not just rolling over. Um, we need to support people like that more and more and more. I mean, that's the accountability that I'm talking about. Get involved with that. Once they see that they have that support, man, it emboldens them and it gives them more strength and more courage to
Hmm.
stand up and be vocal, represent us. So shout out to all of those representatives that are out there that are doing that.
Hmm.
We're gonna try to do our best to support you. But just shout out to those people that are actually standing up and representing us and having our back, because after maybe listening to this episode, you might think that there's no one out there like that, but there is, and that's what we're here to do. Is one more thing that I would like to say is I said it's not about left or right when we started the
Hmm.
episode, but here's the thing: is that we have to support the people that have our best interest in mind. And in this case, it seems to be the conservatives, meaning Republicans. And not just because they're Republicans, we're going to support them. I wouldn't be supporting Bush. I'll tell you that right now.
Hmm.
Before that, it was straight up a uniparty, and they,
Hmm.
Democrat and Republican, you couldn't tell them apart.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying that all of that is fixed right now, because it isn't. But let's support the people that actually have our best interest in mind, and then we will have a party that really does represent us.
Hmm.
So, um, I'm just throwing the challenge out there. It's our fault. We got to fix it. We got to do something about it. So, what are you going to do about it?
Yeah, no, and I think that's the truth. That's the what do you call it? The cold hard truth. Is that how you say that?
Cold hard truth. We gotta recover from this, and the first step is, you know, admitting that we fucked up.
Yeah, 100%. Um, but yeah, don't forget to subscribe to the Lead Unite YouTube. If you subscribe to that one, you'll be able to catch uh, every show that we have on that platform. We have show Monday through Friday. Most of them are at 7 p.m. We have Thursday right now is all Spanish. We will have a little shakeup to the lineup starting the 15th, but it's still the same shows, just different hours. But yeah, subscribe to the Lead Unite YouTube page. Don't forget to register to vote. Check your registration. Go vote November 4th. Share the show and you know be people that lead the change, and remember that a free mind always wins. Peace be with you.